So here we go then, the third iteration of this video. Who are the favourites for the World Cup? I did one video on this topic after the Six Nations. I did another one after the Rugby Championship. And now that all of the warm-up games are finished, the Summer Nations Series is done and dusted. Who are favourites for the World Cup in France? I'm looking forward to this video, although quite frankly, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to draw a conclusion by the end of it. So make sure you drop a comment down below. Let me know who you think at this moment in time. We've seen everyone play. We've seen the Six Nations, the Rugby Championship, and now the warm-ups. Which team is the favourite for the World Cup? Make sure you drop your comment down below. Make sure you also subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. Would massively, massively appreciate that. But it's going to be a good one. Let's get into it. So I've been looking forward to doing this video, and I'm also a little bit nervous. I'll be honest with you. I was hoping at one stage to be able to record this final kind of who is favourites for the World Cup video and myself know quite confidently who I think the favourites should be. But I'm going to be completely open and honest with you from the get-go. I honestly find it so difficult to be able to actually call it between a number of these teams, which I'm going to describe why in the video is because all of them have their strengths, but I think there are some fair question marks over all of them as well. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm going to run through these teams and you guys can let me know who you think, and I'll kind of give an indication of where I'm leaning at the moment, but I'll be honest, I'm not confident of being 100% right because I think it's difficult to call. Also, for obvious reasons, I'm talking about Ireland, I'm talking about South Africa, I'm talking about France, and I'm talking about New Zealand in this video. Who knows what the Scots could achieve? They're playing some great stuff at the moment, but I don't think anyone would be predicting a winner outside of those four nations. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to do it by the world rankings. So Ireland, the #1 team in the world. Let's start off with the Irish. And when I'm doing this, I'm going to do the good points first of all, and then just a couple of questions I have afterwards. So in terms of Ireland, first of all, I don't think any side on an international level has played as consistently highly as they have over the last 2 years or so. Basically, since France won the Six Nations Grand Slam at the start of 2022, I think since that point, Ireland have consistently been the best side in the world. And I think that's reflected in the fact they've done a Six Nations Grand Slam. They have beaten South Africa at home. They went to New Zealand and beat New Zealand in that series last year as well. So I think over a considerable period of time, Ireland have proven why they are the #1 side in the world and why they are worthy of that position and have rightly earned that position. And a lot of that stems from the system of Andy Farrell that he has got them playing. I think if you look at Ireland, they have a system in place that they execute incredibly well and they're very, very effective with. And that means that their attack when it gets going is excellent. And we obviously know they have a good set piece. They have a very good forward pack. They can do a lot of stuff really, really well. And actually, in terms of the system with Ireland, I think Mac Hansen and James Lowe are quite a good example of how good that system is. And it's not to say they're not great players in their own right, but I think they are players that are enhanced by the system they're playing within, and they fit perfectly into the system that they're playing at the moment. So there's a lot of excitement around Ireland, a very small country who are the #1 team in the world, have never got past the quarterfinals, and that brings me on to the question marks around them, because that's always the question mark around Ireland. Can they get past the quarterfinal? Are they going to be able to deal with the pressure of that on them? And I'll be honest, if Ireland don't get past the quarterfinals, I personally don't think it's going to be because of some hoodoo or some mental inability to do so. If they don't get past the quarterfinals, it's going to be more to do with the side of the draw they're on and losing to some really good teams, I would imagine. I don't think we're going to see an Ireland side that are necessarily going to choke. But having said that, if I did have one possible concern for Ireland, and I haven't particularly heard this mentioned, it would be, have their World Cup warm-up matches been too easy? In that they've played Italy, England and Samoa. And bearing in mind that they're in a group with Scotland and South Africa, that they play South Africa first up on the opening weekend, they have to be in position to hit their stride straight away. They're not really going to have, or it's not South Africa straight away, is it? I think, is it Romania, Ireland's first game? Just thinking about it. I think I might have got that wrong. But either way, they play Scotland and South Africa in the group. And they need to be able to hit the ground running immediately. It's South Africa, Scotland, isn't it? The first game up. They have to be able to be close to their best, I think, pretty early on in the tournament. And with the warm-up matches they've had, I'm not sure that is necessarily the case. The other thing, just to throw a question mark in there, is Johnny Sexton. He has not played now since the end of the Six Nations. It's going to be 6 months or so since he last played a rugby match. When it gets to the start of the World Cup, he's obviously been banned. He was injured before that. He's so key to how they play, particularly against the best nations. That's something maybe just to keep an eye on as well. So Ireland, they've been excellent for at least 18 months or so. Can they get themselves over the line? Let's move on to the Springboks, who are a fascinating side. In terms of squad depth, I think the Springboks have the best squad depth in the tournament. France might have something to say about that, but I genuinely don't think there are too many teams that, if you look at the whole 33-player squads on paper, that can match the quality that the Springboks have. And also, I think they have a game plan for obvious reasons that can win a World Cup when things get tight in the knockout stages. We know that the traditional strengths of Springbok rugby, the set piece, the physicality, the defence, being able to put pressure on opposition, we know they're going to be able to do that well. And actually, they do then also have a more versatile game plan this time around. Their game has developed, certainly since the end of that Lions tour, and they have added better attacking structures. We've seen that with the likes of Kane and Moody, Kurtley Aronzer, Marnie Lebok at 10. They have a number of weapons that can hurt teams. So in terms of a game plan that suits knockout rugby, as well as a game plan that they can throw it wide and they can exploit space and opportunities if they get given the chance, then we know they're going to be incredibly dangerous. And we saw what they can do. Friday night at Twickenham, they were absolutely unbelievable. I guess my questions to throw at you, Springbok fans, is number one, the goal kicker. I know Marnie Lebok, brilliant at Twickenham on Friday. Just one game, credit to him. He executed it well. His kicking was very, very good. Do you still have longer term concerns about the goal kicking when it comes to the pressure of, a World Cup quarterfinal or semi-final in an arena like the Stade de France, for example, and the pressure's really on? I don't know. Maybe you can let me know, or maybe he's put those question marks to bed. The other thing, probably for South Africa, and it's how consistently can they play their very best game. Now, Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus have been saying for a while now that they have got a game plan and a squad that they are developing for the World Cup. They've been building towards this. So if all goes to plan, yes, they'll be hitting their best when it comes to the World Cup. But just because we haven't seen it week in, week out, because of the way they've prepared for the World Cup, that would be maybe just a slight question mark of, can they produce what they produced on Friday at Twickenham on a consistent basis over the next 2 months? If they do, then I don't think there's going to be many teams getting in their way. But that's the South Africans. On to the French. And what an occasion, what a World Cup it is going to be. Rugby, just generally in France, is in a brilliant, brilliant place, particularly when you compare it to a number of other countries in the world, England, Wales, places like that. The interest, the fan engagement in the sport is just going to be awesome. And I think the World Cup will be excellent as a result. And for French, it's a great opportunity to win their first ever World Cup. Often been beaten in the final. They've never been able to get over the line. What a great chance this is, with a really, really good team as well that we have seen. Fabien Galtier come in since the last World Cup and has developed them. We've seen Antoine Dupont become the best player on the planet, I think many people would say, and they have a team in terms of the weapons they have in their back line, the forward pack they have. I think if you look at France on paper, they almost have everything in place to go and win it, in that they have a very, very good team. They have home support, and they have been building nicely. We've seen them beat New Zealand at home, beat South Africa at home over the last few years. They won the Six Nations Grand Slam. They only lost the last one because they had to face Ireland in Dublin in that brilliant, brilliant match. So the questions, I suppose, for France is, number one, how do they deal with the pressure? It was something that I think got to them in 2007, the last time they hosted a World Cup. I think this French team is much better than that team in 2007, but nonetheless, pressure does funny things to people in sport. You never know what is going to happen. And my big question with France, and I feel like I'm in the minority here, I think there might be loads of you in the comments saying you don't know what you're talking about, what you on about. I don't know if I would be picking them to win this World Cup if it wasn't for the fact they were at home. And that is a big factor, don't get me wrong. They've won 22 of their last 23 home matches. Their only defeat over that period was against Scotland in the Six Nations in 2021 when it was behind closed doors anyway, so they didn't have that home support. So the fact that it is at home for the French is an absolutely crucial factor. But barring the odd match, obviously the game against England at Twickenham where they blew England away, but frankly, England are fairly rubbish at the moment anyway, I'm just not sure we've seen France consistently play their best for a little while. That would be my kind of question over them. That might be a little bit unfair. As I say, on paper, I think it's all there for them to potentially go and win it. I'm just not actually sure on a consistent basis in the last 18 months or so, basically since they won that Grand Slam in the Six Nations at the start of 2022, how consistently have they been at their very, very best? I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair, but that was a slight concern over the French. Let's get on to the All Blacks, the final team I'm going to mention in this video. And they, at the start of the year, most people probably wouldn't have been predicting that they would necessarily be in the conversation. After the Rugby Championship, I thought that they might be my favourites. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I went to Twickenham on Friday night for that game between New Zealand and South Africa. And I thought to myself, do you know what? If New Zealand put in a performance here, I think I'm ready to feel pretty confident about the fact that they're going to go on and win the World Cup. Because as I say, in the Rugby Championship, they were excellent. And they've proven that at their best, they're capable of beating anyone this year. I think we've seen that. I think the first 20 minutes against the Springboks that we saw earlier this year, they were excellent. I know for the Springboks, they'll say they weren't playing their best, and the fact that it was in New Zealand as well. But I still think they have weapons in that team to cause anyone problems, whoever they face in the tournament. And also a big part of that has been their improved set piece, their improved forward pack, and those areas of the game has been a big reason, I think, for the kind of 8-9 game unbeaten streak that New Zealand had at the end of last year and into the start of this year. I suppose the question marks over them is, have they peaked too early? A lot was made about the fact that normally in a World Cup year, New Zealand didn't tend to win the Rugby Championship because they knew that a World Cup was different and it was about peaking for the World Cup. Whereas this year, they did start the year really, really well. I think in part that was because they were starting from a lower base. If you look at their 2022 not being all that great by their really high standards, they felt they had to start at a higher level. But have they peaked too early? Have they not quite got the timing right for what you have to do for a World Cup, which is a long World Cup, remember? Final isn't until the end of October. It gets underway in a couple of weeks. So it's 2 months, really, that they need to try and find those levels. And also, was that match against the Springboks a sign that the side isn't as strong as the Rugby Championship suggested? Maybe it was an Australia side who had Eddie Jones coming in, and Argentina and the Springboks that were building towards the World Cup. I don't know the answer to those questions, but I think they're fair things to ask when looking at those teams. So those are my general thoughts. That's where I think the top 4 teams are. I'll be honest, if I was forced for an answer right now, I would probably have to lean towards the Springboks, but I'm also worried that might be recency bias because of the score they put on the All Blacks. You let me know what you think in the comments section. I really wanted, as I said, to be able to come in and say, this is the team that's going to win it. But if I, put all my cards or went all in on one team, I'm not sure I would fully believe it myself. I think it is going to be a fascinating World Cup because I think there are good cases for all 4 of those teams and some fairly legitimate question marks over all 4 of them as well. So I look forward to reading your comments. Let me know, who do you think are the World Cup favourites? Now that the next ball to be kicked is going to be the opener, France-New Zealand on the Friday night. Cannot wait for that one. So let me know. Look forward to reading your comments. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. And I'll see you in the next one.